All right, so I think a lot of you will be able to relate to what I'm going to say today. But have any of you out there had that moment in your gut where you said, oh shit, I'm in trouble? Now, I think a lot of people have that moment that they come to in their lives. And man, that's a feeling of like, oh man, what am I going to do? Right? I had that moment. I was about 39, 40 years old when I had that moment, when I came to that moment of, oh man, I'm in trouble. You might say, oh my God, or oh shit. It just depends on how you use language, right? So when I had that moment, man, I felt like, oh man, what am I gonna do, right? And that moment came when I realized I was broke. I was like, oh man, I'm broke, right? And here it was, I'm thinking now, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna deal with what's in front of me? How am I gonna deal with this situation? Now here's the deal. A lot of you are at that point right now in your life. You're at the point where you realize you are broke. Because to not realize it is just to stay in a place of ignorance, right? And sometimes we choose to stay there because it's more comfortable there. It's convenient to stay there. But when you know where you are, you have to do everything you can to get outside of that. And it doesn't matter what age you are, right? But that is a moment that makes you feel some type of angst, I would say. It makes you anxious, right? When you realize you are broke. Now, what made me realize I was broke is just really sitting down and starting to process things. Over days, it didn't happen, oh, I just sat down one day. I just started to process things over time. And I came to the conclusion that I was broke. Now, why did it take me so long to come to that conclusion? Because I was mesmerized. I was living in a fantasy world, right? A fantasy world of credit. You see, I had good credit and I still have good credit today. But I was fooled into thinking that good credit means that you have money. Credit does not mean that you have money. It's two completely different things. So I thought because I had credit, I had money. But I didn't. I was broke, technically speaking, right? Now, here's what we have to understand. How money works. The economy, the American economy that you live in. There's about $53 trillion in the economy, or 53 million in money in the economy. And the question is, how is it broken down? How is that broken down? 50 trillion is credit. About 3 trillion is dollars, cash, money. And the question is, how much cash do you control? And when I start to ask myself that question, okay, get credit out of your mind, Brandon. This don't have anything to do with credit. How much cash do you control? And I start to go into my accounts. I'm going into my accounts, going into my little accounts here, and I don't see very much cash at all. I see, you know, I got my house loan, I got my car loans, but all of those are loans. Where is the money? Where is the money? And I couldn't put my hand on the money. I couldn't put my hand on it except for, you know, a few dollars I had saved, but it wasn't any real money, right? So I had to come to terms with that and deal with that. I saw myself as a failure at that point. I had failed financially. Right? So I wanted to figure out how to get out of that situation. A lot of you are in that situation right now. You trying to figure out how to get out. Some of you haven't been hit on the head yet. You don't even realize that you're broke. But if you start looking at the access to money that you have, how much in investments do you have right now? When you look at your investments, whether those are 401ks, whether those are crypto accounts, whether those are your Roth IRAs, your, what other accounts we got out there? Your personal IRAs, you take a look at those accounts and what is collectively in those accounts, right? And then you start to say, okay, now when I look at all of the money that I have and I take that money and I subtract my liabilities, what do I have left over? And you'll realize then where you really are. Your total amount of money that you have minus what you owe. And that gives you a real good picture of where you're at. And that could be a scary, scary picture when you really start to look at it, because when you start to look at the money that you have, the money that you've saved, the money that you'll have when you are not working any longer, how much does that come to? Because that ultimately determines what type of life you have when you're no longer working. And I don't know about you, but you don't want to stop working and your life starts to go downhill because you're not working anymore. The whole idea is to be able to maintain yourself, maintain your lifestyle through your work, through the work that you've put in, through the discipline that you've put in to save over time. And a lot of business owners, freight brokers, truck drivers alike, a lot of us are broke. A lot of you are broke right now, right? You are in a situation where you don't have a whole lot of money at all. You live out of your pocket, a lot of you, right? I know it. A lot of you live out of your pocket. You spend money, spend money, spend money, spend money. But when you start looking at the end of the day and start looking at how much you have, you don't have very much. You make decent money. You make good money. But see, it's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep out of what you make, right? When we start to look at how financially savvy we've been, we look at all the money that we've made over a lifetime. But then how much did you keep from the money you made over a lifetime? That really determines, I think, how savvy you are financially, right? How many days do you go a month without spending money? When I look at I have this app. This app is called Mint, the Mint app. It'll show me how many days in the month that I didn't spend money. And I average about 2 days in the month that I don't spend money. I try and work on that to try to expand that, right? Because I just want to have better control of my money. Not that I'm trying to be an old fart that doesn't want to spend money. Yeah, sometimes I just don't want to spend money. But there are other times where I'm trying to practice a certain discipline to keep more of my money in my household. When you think about it, I want you to think about this as a business owner. When money comes into your door, comes into your household, when you receive your pay at the end of the month, at the first of the month, or whenever you get it, right? How long does that money stay in-house? How long does it stay within your house before it goes out the door to bills, to payments, car notes, house notes? How long does it stay within your house? And that's what I'm working on, to try to make sure that my dollars stay within my household much longer. And when I say within my household, I mean within my investments, within the things that are working for me, not giving it away so it works for somebody else, right? So when we really start to look at it, you have to look at your situation and call it what it is. And most of us in business right now, as freight brokers and truck drivers, most of us are broke. And in order to get out of the situation, you must have to first realize where you are. You must first realize that you are broke, right? That you don't have access to money, right? Other than credit, not access to, I mean access to your own dollars. You can go get credit. You can go put money on a credit card and then pay it back at an interest rate. But I mean, how much do you have access of yours? When you look at the average amount that people have in a 401k, it's not a whole lot of money at all. Even if it's $100,000, how long would $100,000 last you after you have not worked for a while? Or when you get 62, or when you get 50, you might want to retire and say, hey, I don't want to work anymore after I turn 50 years old. How long will that $100,000 last you? If you're spending $30,000 a year, you got about 3.5 years. So that's not a lot of money at all. So you have to come to terms with where you are and then decide to say, hey, I got to get focused here, man. I got to get focused. I got to turn this thing around regardless of what age you are, because you have the power to do it. The only question is, will you do it? That's what I wanted to share with you today. Certainly hope this information has been helpful. If you want to learn more about the freight brokerage business, I'll leave a free video or a free link in the description. It's my 5-video series. I titled it How the Load Movement Process Works. It'll let you come into the office with me and you can watch as I move the loads. I talk to the shippers and carriers, and you can kind of just stand back and get an understanding of how it works. And then if you're interested in learning more about how we go out and secure our customer base, get the shippers that we work with, I'll leave you a free video right here. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.